Hey everyone, I'm Synatra, and this summer I was hired to be the tripping director. And actually last summer, my most previous summer, I worked as a canoe tripper. And I was thinking just the other day, one of my favorite things about being a canoe tripper was the food. So I thought it'd be super fun to share two of my favorite tripping recipes that you guys can make at home. So I have one for breakfast and one meal for lunch/dinner. And the great thing about these recipes is I feel like they're kind of camp classics, but at the same time, you can make them at home. If you don't have all the ingredients, don't sweat it. Work with what you got. I know that everyone is kind of going to the grocery store and not as much as they normally would. So without further ado, let's get started with Sinatra's two favorite tripping meals.
Okay, so up first we have no bake. So let's go over the ingredients that we need to get started. First ingredient you'll need are some quick oats, preferably quick oats. Don't get rolled oats, they take forever to cook. Just a tip from a friend. Then next up you will need brown sugar, light brown sugar, dark brown sugar, doesn't matter, does the same thing. Get either one. Next, you will need Granny Smith apples, preferably Granny Smith. Use whatever apples you have on hand. I just like the taste of green apples. And I feel like at camp, we always end up using green apples anyway. And then after green apples, the next thing you'll need is some ground cinnamon. The next ingredient you will need is any sort of flavorless oil. Do not use olive oil. I've done that before and it ends up tasting like olive, so definitely go for flavorless. Now we have some toppings that are optional. However, I feel like chocolate chips are mandatory. I like to add in chocolate chips and vanilla extract, which is kind of my little secret. I would bring it on trips sometimes, and it just made the no-bake that much better. And I almost made it taste like a granola / chocolate chip cookie, which is one reason why I love it. So now that you have all your ingredients, you're going to start cutting up your apple. I like to cut it up into quarters. So I cut it in half first and then cut those halves in half. I feel like everyone knows how to cut an apple. Cut it into just little cubes. The smaller, the better. Also, if you are on the younger side, please make sure to get an adult's help with using a sharp knife. So once you are finished slicing your apple, you want to pop a pan onto the stove. Once again, if you are younger, please get a parent's help. You want to pour some oil into the pan and then essentially just plop the apples. That's the right word. Plop the apples into the pan. Let the apples heat up in the oil, and then once it's hot enough, throw in some brown sugar. And the whole idea is that you want your apples to essentially kind of caramelize. Then at about this point, when it starts to bubble and it looks a little bit thick, you want to start adding in the cinnamon. So once the apples are bubbling and you have the nice caramelization and cinnamon, it's time to add in a little bit of vanilla extract. I just like to dump a little bit in. Do be careful though, because when you're mixing oil with any other liquid like water, it does tend to burn and kind of spray up. So once again, if you are younger, please be careful and get an adult to help you. So after the vanilla, it is time to finally add in the oats. Keep in mind, these will expand. So add in however much you want. I was making it for myself and my mum, so I used about 2 portions, which is about 2 bowls worth of oats. So once everything is nice and toasty and to your liking, I will take it off the pan and pop it into a bowl. Then I like to add on some additional optional toppings like some dried cranberries and of course the chocolate chips. And there you have it, some delicious Camp Cortha no-bake. Okay, so now time for lunch/dinner, and today we are going to be having Pita Pizzas, which I feel like is such a camp classic, super delicious. So for the ingredients, you are going to need obviously some pitas. Use whatever bread you have, could be an English muffin, However, I feel like for pita pizzas, you kind of need a pita. You know what I mean? Then next up, you are going to have some cheese. I'm just using this shredded cheese. I also ended up using some mozzarella cheese. I just used whatever cheese I could find in my fridge. The next thing you're going to need is some sauce. I just have some classic tomato sauce here. I'm going to be making two versions. One version, which is the camp classic, which is just like sauce and cheese, and then another version that's a little bit fancier that you can have at home. So for the fancier one, I'm going to be using some sauteed veggies that I just threw together into a pan. Okay, now for the fun part, decorating the pizza. So I'm going to start off with making the camp classic, which is just tomato sauce, cheese. I, however, couldn't find any pepperoni at my local grocery store, so I'm just going to be using some plain old tomato sauce and cheese. So I'm going to do half with that and then half of the pita pizza, a different kind. So for the other half of the pita pizza, I'm going to go in there with some pesto. So one great thing about this recipe, how I said at the beginning, is it's very adaptable. So not being at camp, there is one perk. You can kind of customize it to however you want, not just what is in the food barrel. So for this one, I'm going to be using some pesto and those delicious sauteed vegetables and some mozzarella cheese. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is, now that it is all done and looking beautiful, I'm going to pop it into the oven. I'm just using this small little convection oven. It was a really hot day today and I really didn't want to turn on the big one. So I'm just popping it in at about 350 degrees for only a couple minutes until the cheese melts and the pita becomes crispy. Okay, Camp Kawartha, I really hope you enjoyed these two recipes. I loved making this video. Hopefully you guys get a chance to make these. I love you all and stay safe.